There is no conspiracist or member of the conspiratorium worth his or her weight in tinfoil hats, whatever the hell that metaphor is, who doesn't know about Operation Northwoods. And what amazes me is the number of people that I talk to who've never heard of it. Operation Northwoods is the forgotten blueprint for deception. And let me tell you why it still matters today. In the annals of American history, there are few government plots, provable, and not just pretend or made up, but provable, as shocking and disturbing as Operation Northwoods. It's a scheme so outrageous that it reads like the stuff of conspiracy fiction. But make no mistake, this was no theory, this is no speculation. It was a real proposal by the U.S. military in the early 1960s to stage terrorist attacks on American soil and blame them on Cuba. Why? To justify a war against Fidel Castro. And yet, despite the overwhelming implications of this plan, this declassified plan, and this blows me away, most Americans have never heard of it. I mean, of all the things not to hear of, this is false flag 101. The lack of widespread knowledge about Operation Northwoods, I think, is not an accident, because it seems that for obvious reasons, governments and intel agencies and the mainstream media have a vested interest in burying uncomfortable truths that expose just how far the deep state and shadow government are willing to go to manipulate public opinion. But why does this Cold War era deception remain relevant today? If you don't see the connections, because the tactics outlined in Operation Northwoods, false flags, psychological manipulation, psyops, manufactured consent for war, are still being used right in front of your eyes. And this is not just a history lesson. This is about how governments operate in secret, how media narratives are controlled, and how the public in general is deceived into supporting conflicts and policies and agendas that they might otherwise reject. But now they're amenable to it. Operation Northwoods is not just some relic of the past. It is a template that has been applied time and time again, from the Gulf of Tonkin to modern interventions in the Middle East, and even recent narratives surrounding certain global crises. You'll see the fingerprints. See, understanding this operation, I should say, is key to understanding the machinery of deception that still governs our world today. This is fundamental. This is rudimentary. This is, dare I say, abecedarian. Okay, so what was Operation Northwoods? In 1962, the U.S. government officially did the following. Specifically, by the way, it was the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they drafted and approved a plan called Operation Northwoods. Okay? This is the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this document outlined a series of planned acts of terrorism, including the following: shooting down a civilian airliner and blaming it on Cuba, staging bombings in American cities and pinning them on Cuban operatives, engineering a fake attack on U.S. military bases to create the illusion of Cuban aggression, using fabricated evidence to justify an all-out war with Cuba. See how this works? Any of this sound familiar? And the idea was simple: manufacture a crisis, enrage the American people, and force political leaders to act on public demand for retaliation. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like that Hegelian dialectic that we talk about? Problem, reaction, solution? Or thesis, antithesis, synthesis? It sounds familiar, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Make the public demand that you seek some kind of retribution. Now, the proposal was given to JFK, who rejected it outright. Said, this is nuts. And many have speculated that this rejection, along with Kennedy's broader skepticism of the military-industrial complex, played a role in his ultimate dispatch the following year. Who knows? The document remained classified for decades until it was finally declassified in the 1990s, proving that once and for all, that the U.S. government had actively considered killing its own citizens to achieve its geopolitical goals. Because that's what they did. At least, that's what they wanted you to think. Now, why does Operation Northwoods matter today? Well, let me explain to you. It's very, very simple. If this was merely a moment of Cold War madness, some outlier moment, something that never came to fruition, it would still be a shocking historical footnote. But what makes Operation Northwoods so crucial today is how eerily similar it is to strategies that are accompanying certain modern-day geopolitical events. Governments and intelligence agencies still use fear, deception, and manufactured crises to control the public. The tactics used in Operation Northwoods have been repackaged, refined, and executed in conflicts across the world. Let's break down the key themes that are still relevant today. First of all, false flags and manufactured crises. Absolutely 101 abecedarian. A false flag is a staged event designed to appear as though it was carried out by an enemy or someone else, when in reality it was orchestrated by those claiming to be the victims. From the days of the pirate ships, and they would lift the flag, the Jolly Roger, and they move it up, I mean, it's simple if you think about it. Operation Northwoods was the ultimate false flag blueprint, and history has seen multiple examples of similar events playing out. Well, this isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. This is reality. Take, for example, the great Gulf of Tonkin incident. It was not great, but in 1964. Basically, in fact, verified not too long ago by the NSA. This was used as a justification for the Vietnam War. And we all know about this, but the U.S. government claimed that North Vietnamese forces had attacked an American destroyer in international waters. Decades later, declassified documents revealed that the attack never happened. It was fabricated to escalate U.S. involvement in Vietnam, leading to a war that cost over 58,000 American lives and millions of Vietnamese lives. Similarly, in a post-9/11 world, we saw the Bush administration push a war in Iraq under the false pretense of weapons of mass destruction. Weapons that were never found, weapons that were never even thought of being there. Don't forget, the smoking gun could be a mushroom cloud. The pattern is clear. Stage a crisis, blame an enemy, and justify war. It is the Northwoods playbook in action. The second thing to understand, this is government created fear as a control mechanism. The biggest lesson of Operation Northwoods is that fear is the most powerful weapon in the government's arsenal. When people are scared, they don't ask questions. They demand action. Just do something. Get those bastards. The notion of we surrendering our liberties for the promise of safety. You've heard this before. Consider the Patriot Act, which was rushed through Congress after 9/11. Allowing the government to spy on American citizens, conduct warrantless searches, and indefinitely detain people without trial. And we wanted this, and we demanded it. We had no problem with it. None of this would have been even politically viable or even theoretically viable without the climate of fear and anger, all created by the attacks. The attacks made us crazy. We said, do whatever you want. Fear-based control is not just about war. Look at how COVID was used to, in essence, justify unprecedented government overreach. Lockdowns, vaccine mandates, censorship of dissenting opinions. We've been through this. This is what Bobby Kennedy's doing. This is what everybody's getting to the bottom of. The destruction of small businesses while major corporations thrive. The Northwoods mindset is not just about starting wars. It's about using fear. It's about using fear as a motivator to force compliance. Compliance That is 100% without any resistance whatsoever. A third point, you have to look at the role of the media in government deception. This is critical. We have to know this. One of the most overlooked aspects of Operation Northwoods is the way in which the media and media complicity are used. The plan counted on media outlets to spread propaganda, reinforce the official narrative, and of course, vilify the intended enemy, in that case, communism and Castro and Cuba. Fast forward to today, and the mainstream media, well, then, maybe hopefully not now, still play this role. Consider how the press handled the events of the following. The Russian collusion hoax. This was it. This was Northwoods, baby. For years, corporate media outlets pushed a baseless narrative that Donald Trump was somehow a Russian agent. Don't know how, don't know what he did. And it was to be debunked in toto. Remember, all of the members, not only the media, but the intel community saying, oh, absolutely. Then there was Hunter Biden's laptop. Remember this one. News of Biden's corruption was censored across all major platforms and dismissed as, you got it, Russian disinformation, despite being 100% authentic. Look at Ukraine coverage. The media present, to put it bluntly, a one-sided narrative, failing to address U.S. involvement in the 2014 Ukrainian coup that destabilized the region. See, Operation Northwoods provides that the media are not an independent watchdog. No, they are an extension of the state when needed. And today's journalists are not, I hope they're gone now, but today's journalists, for the most part, the mainstream media, the USAID folks, they're not uncovering corruption. They're gatekeepers, ensuring that only approved narratives reach you, the public. The next point was this, number 4, I guess. The deep state and the shadow government's willingness to eliminate threats. Kennedy's rejection of Operation Northwoods wasn't just a bureaucratic disagreement. It was a direct challenge to the deep state. You don't do that. Just a year later, he was dispatched under highly suspicious circumstances. And to this day, the CIA refuses to declassify all JFK-related documents. Oh, you're going to hear some, but that's over with. The pattern of removing political threats persists. Richard Nixon was forced to resign after attempting to dismantle the CIA's power. Oh, yeah, believe it or not, you're not going to, your version of Watergate is a little bit different than mine. Donald Trump faced endless investigations, impeachment attempts, and, well, actually, they were successful. It was a conviction that wasn't, and media persecution for exposing the deep state and globalist agenda. Outsiders, this is important, outsiders who expose real corruption mysteriously end up, shall we say, I don't know, their lives interrupted. You can talk about Breitbart, you can talk about Seth Rich, you can talk about Epstein. We've been through that a million times. But isn't that interesting? It's interesting. Now, the lesson. The Northwoods mindset isn't just about controlling public opinion. It's about eliminating those who stand in the way. Ask Alex Jones how he's doing about that. Remember something. The playbook never changed. This is the playbook never changed. If Operation Northwoods taught us anything, it's that governments are fully willing to deceive, manipulate, and kill their own citizens if it serves their interests. And while the Cuban conflict never materialized in the way the Pentagon had hoped, the same tactics have been used over and over again to this day to justify wars and curtail and limit freedoms and push political agendas. The biggest threat to these operations is public awareness. Let me say that again. The biggest threat to these operations, these ops, is public awareness. You. Once people recognize the patterns, manufactured fear, media complicity, and suppression of dissent, they become immune to the lies. That's why Operation Northwoods must never be forgotten. It must be taught. In today's world, where wars are justified by deception and freedoms are eroded and under the guise of security or whatever it is, and dissent is labeled misinformation or disinformation or bad information, the lessons of Northwoods are probably more relevant now than ever. It's not just history. It's the manual for how the deep state operates. And until people wake up, until people wake up, they will keep running the same play over and over again. Remember, the people who came up with Northwoods, they're still here. I mean, not the individual people, but those in that mindset, those people who work in the government, they're still here. They haven't gone anywhere. You think they would? You think his mindset was alien, was not appreciated now? Stop it. Think about what I've said, my friend. It's very, very critical, very, very important. What I'd like you to do is listen to what I've said, subscribe to the channel. You won't believe the number of people who watch my videos and don't subscribe. Like the video, hit that little bell so you're notified of live streams and new videos. And whatever you do in the particular section that follows, join your citizens and comment. Comment as you see fit.